come and present its own research, and the Ipsos report indicated that the EFF brand has exceeded the brand Julius Malema. Therefore, it has now taken form and shape of a national organization. So I don't have to do 10, 15 meetings per day because we now have leaders who understand and appreciate what needs to be done. So when I was doing all of those community meetings, and many of them was in a way to workshop in a practical way the lower structures and the collective leadership of the EFF, because we had, before EFF, consumed a lot of experience politically and organizational.
You're very big on accountability. I wonder, given your last electoral show in 2019, what is your expectation for this year? What figure would it be a failure for you, and what would be a success for you?
Well, the failure will be to be below DA, and the success will be to get an outright majority where we govern South Africa in a manner that we think it will benefit the people of South Africa.
Can we speak a little bit about the manifesto? It's a big, extensive, and very detailed document. Maybe you can speak to some of the priority areas for you, and maybe just touch particularly on economic policy and the thinking in that sense from the EFF.
Well, our manifesto 6 jobs, because we believe that the population of South Africa, especially more than half of the youth, are unemployed, and without employment and living wages, this country's economy is not sustainable. So we need to create jobs through industrialization. We need to create jobs through beneficiation. We have a lot of minerals in the South African country and the continent itself. So beneficiation will go a long way in creating jobs. And we need to create tax incentives and other benefits for those who are prepared to go and open factories and industries outside of Gauteng into the new economic development zones that would identify as the EFF. So we are very big on jobs, because we believe that if we create a state security-owned company, we'll cut a lot of middlemen. In South Africa, for a person to be a security guard, there has to be a middleman who goes and look for this guy and then present the guy to the government, and the government pays the middleman to pay the actual worker. And we realize that in the process there is a lot of exploitation. You pay 15,000 per guard, and the guard is given 3,500. So when you insource them, the same as cleaners and all of that, you've got a potential of creating a lot of jobs in less than 6 months by just taking over the security guards that look after government facilities and public facilities and properties. So we believe that that can be another immediate intervention. We need to fill all the vacancies in government, because most of these people are acting, and when you act, you don't bring about the full confidence, and it affects your performance. We also are very big on the land question. I think we have articulated our expropriation of land without compensation several times, and the understanding is that we make the state a custodian of the land, the same way we did when we took over in 1994 as black people. The minerals of South Africa used to belong to private multinational companies like Anglo-American and all of that. When we passed the Minerals Act, we made the state the custodian of the minerals, and that everyone who wants to mine must apply for a license. And Anglo-American did not leave the country because we took the rights away from it. Whatever they had at the time, you keep that, but going forward, you can't just go about it without asking for permission. So we're seeking the same thing with the land. Make the state custodian of the land, and then everybody else, this property belongs to whoever owns it. It's their property, but the land is not theirs. You don't lose home, you don't lose anything. We want to then account for the whole of the land so that the remaining unused land can be allocated to those who need the land. And unused land includes the existing farms, where a person has got 15-hectare farm, but is only working on the 5-hectare. And he has been like that and has got no immediate program to expand the using of the other remaining 10 hectares. So we need that to be given to people who will use it in the immediate for food security, for settlement, for agricultural purposes. Because in South Africa, the struggle started with the land. And if you're not going to give the people the land, everything else we are doing is pretentious. Because one day we're going to have an unled revolution and nobody will have control over those unruly characters. And unled revolution is anarchy. And you don't want to have anarchy. I mean, why would people sit comfortably this side of Sandton, and across the road there is Alexandra, where people are landless and are squashed and living like sardines, and you don't see anything wrong with that. And then one day when those people, they don't have to hire buses, they just have to stand up from there and come here and say, we've had enough. We too want to stay where there are toilets, where there are schools, where there are clinics, where there is road and security. So let's give the people the land. It is not true that when you say the people must be given the land, investors are going to be very scared. That Mall of Africa is built on the land of the Maya family. Waterfall. There's a huge development in Midrand here, huge houses, not owned by illiterates, not owned by poor people, clever, educated people who know what they are doing. They went to lease the land for 100 years from one family. But when we say lease it from government, they've got a problem with that. But they can lease it from one family for 100 years lease. Land tenure, yes, is very important. People must be guaranteed this land will be used for this purpose for so many years. But what is worse in Waterfall, in Midrand, Johannesburg, is that once the 100 years finishes, your children will not have a right to inherit that land. They too will have to go and get into new lease and new payments of their own, because that's not your land. So this artificial outcry, it's imaginary, it's a swargefar, it's a fear-mongering. It's not real. Every big development done in South Africa, in any economic development zones, Big Ucha or any other one you want to mention, all of that investment is put on a state land. They don't own the land where there is huge development on economic development zones that were created by President Mbeki and subsequent presidents who came after him. Those pieces of land are not owned by the people who have put a lot of billions in developing those pieces of land. So this imaginary thing that wants to keep black people in perpetual landlessness, we're not going to buy into it. The last point, there are many issues I can say, but the load shedding, security of energy supply, it's one thing that is highly on the table of the EFF. And we can stop load shedding in less than a year. We need to engage in converting our people from using electricity into gas, especially for cooking and heating. They are gas geysers now. If you go and look at how many electricity do we waste on heating, how many electricity do we waste on cooking, you'll realize that we can actually relieve the grid of serious pressures just from heating and cooking alone. We, as government, are supposed to approve the new development, including plans of building new houses. So it can be a rule that anyone who builds a new house, there must be a gas cooking stove. By that, already you will release the grid from this unnecessary pressure. We are for a mixed electricity supply. We are for the green, but we will never leave our coal for no alternative. If you say to me, shut down a power station, a coal power station of 100 megawatts, the alternatives must give me 100 megawatts before I close my 100 megawatts. Otherwise, I'm not going to do that. I close my 100 megawatts relying on what? On wind. What if there is no wind for the next 2 months? What's going to happen to me? So I can't do that. We need to also service the existing power stations optimally. And we need to know that when we fix and service these power stations, when we close this one, we should have, for service and maintenance, we should have generated sufficient reserve to an extent that when we close this one for maintenance, we'll not get into a load shedding. But also conclude Kusile and Midupi. How do you have the so-called new power stations which don't have all the units operating? If this unit operates, the other one has collapsed. The other time it was even a structural problem, which is a confirmation of poor workmanship and corruption. Since 1994, we only built 2, and the prices have gone mad. Like billions of rands have been spent on those power stations, yet you are not in a position where you can pride yourself as a country that we have built a new powerful coal power stations, and that power station has got the latest technology, yet we're building it now as if we're building it during the Stone Ages. So we need leadership that will do that and fight corruption in ESCOM in an extreme manner, because one of the things that have put us where we are is corruption in ESCOM and cadre deployment of people who don't have the necessary qualification. Nothing wrong with cadre deployment. They do it in America and everywhere else. They don't call it cadre deployment. They're not even open about it. The problem is when you deploy people who don't have qualifications. Education must be free from early childhood development until you obtain your first degree, and those who perform very well, there must be scholarship for them to pursue their education, precisely because education is at the center of any economic development. If we're not going to educate these people, decolonized African education, if we're not going to educate these people, we are not going anywhere. President Mandela messed us up in 1994. We didn't need RDP houses in 1994. We needed free education. We're going to be building our own houses now. If he had given us free quality education in 1994, we're going to be working and building our own houses. And there will not be a need for social grants. There will not be a need for 350 that they give to the unemployed people, who majority of them have not gone to school. So we want to achieve sustainable development. We have to give children free education. And in South Africa, we must give them mathematics, not maths literacy, that mathematics that is going to be compulsory. So every time I speak about giving people mathematics, they say, I didn't pass mathematics. Why does he want to give it to other people? If I get HIV because I didn't use protection and I say to you, use protection, you say, no, you've got HIV, you can't tell me about using protection. Only fools will argue like that. So the fact that I didn't pass mathematics doesn't mean mathematics is not a very important subject. It makes you to have the ability to think. A principal of mine said to me when I was demanding that history must be compulsory, because I thought I was being revolutionary, and then we need to remove mathematics because it was compulsory in my school. He said to me, you don't have to pass it. You just have to do it, because everything else you do in your life is calculations. Now, Verwoerd says, don't give black people mathematics. What are they going to do? What are they going to use it for? He was right, because the top jobs were reserved for white people. And mathematics means top jobs. And we were not going to get top jobs even if we have mathematics because we are black. So you are wasting their time. Don't give them mathematics. Freedom and democracy should mean giving your people that which the Boers denied them. If the Boers said don't give them mathematics, 1994 should have meant we're now giving them mathematics. Everything that the Boers said black people don't deserve, that's what freedom meant. We should have given them that. Last point is crime. We have a serious problem of crime, partly because we have somehow disempowered our law enforcement. People point guns at law enforcement. Law enforcement, when you call them, there is an attack, there is a crime being committed, they ask, is there guns, is there blood? And they are scared for their own lives, because they know if they go there and defend themselves, they are still going to be treated somehow. And I was very happy with Mukwana's job in KZN now, where he killed a lot of dangerous criminals who were pointing guns at law enforcement officers. And I heard some journalists writing that the excessive force by the police is unacceptable. You cannot argue like that now when we are under attack. Our murder rate in South Africa surpasses the murder rate of areas where there is war, as if we are in a war. So because we are not in a war, but criminals have declared war against us, we need to respond in a military way to stop them, because we have been speaking to them and they're taking advantage of us. Today in South Africa, law-abiding citizens live in fear and criminals live in a happy environment. No criminal has got high walls because they are not scared. But the people who comply with the law are scared. So we must make the people who comply with the law to demolish high walls and enjoy their gardens and the views of their beautiful houses. And we need to make the criminals scared.
Your current assessment, 49 days away from the election, are we heading for a situation in which no party has an outright majority? What is your current assessment?
Well, I don't think the ANC will get anything beyond 40%. And I think they have somehow, accepted that fate. I mean, Mbalula, when he became the Secretary General of the ANC, said the ANC will not get 35%. And then there was noise about it. He says, no, I was giving an example. But the guy is a very honest guy. If you find him on his happy day, he will tell you the truth. He was giving us what they actually found internally when they were doing their own research, that you'll be very lucky if you pass 50% mark. Ipsos said to the EFF, you are neck on neck with the DA. We don't know what you are doing, but keep doing what you are doing. Because by look of things, if nothing drastically changes, you're going to pass the DA. And we're talking now sitting at 20-25% of the EFF, and the DA at 14-15%. So basically that's that. We use Ipsos as a research institute. We don't have any contractual relationship with them. We don't sanction any research on our behalf. We wait for them to release their own research, which is not sanctioned by us. And then we ask them to come and make a presentation to the EFF because we believe in science. So when they came to the EFF first time, we said to them, why should we believe you? Not first time, this year. Was it this year or last year? Yeah. They said, we said, why should we believe you? You just go out there. And I've never been asked by anyone who I'm going to, where do you do your research? They say, when have we ever got you wrong? In which election year? So we said 2014. They said, you are right. 2014, that was our first time, and no one knew this animal. All of us said all types of things about you. But since then, we never got you wrong. We've got every election prediction right on the EFF, on the DA, on the ANC. So we have no reason to doubt them. Yes.
So just to kind of elaborate, ask on Stimulus' question. So say that ANC gets less than 40, 37 according to SRF. It's going to be a fragmented parliament, right? What would the structure look like? Who would be ruling?
Well, it's a coalition government. It won't be a fragmented parliament or government because, you know, the founders of our constitution declared our democracy multi-party democracy, which meant that there must be different types of political parties in parliament and everywhere else, and these parties must have the ability to can work together in the best interest of our people based on the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So the problem then began when the ANC was getting two-thirds majority and became arrogant and suffered from the sins of the incumbency. Because that's what absolute majority does. It corrupts. And it corrupts absolutely. So now the South Africans are beginning to say, let's go back a bit and try to check if we don't give anyone an absolute majority, how will they conduct themselves? So coalition governments work. The problem is the ANC and the DA. They are too arrogant, and understandably so. They tasted power. Now, when they lose power and they must work in a coalition arrangement, it becomes so frustrating because they used to do as they wish. And the citizens are now saying, no, we are going to work together. So let's take Ekurhuleni, for instance, where the EFF was in government. Ekurhuleni research was, a study was released now. Ekurhuleni is one of the top 3 best performing municipalities under the EFF. I mean, in South Africa, Ekurhuleni is one of the best. But do you know that those special grants that are given to municipalities by national government, like for infrastructure, water infrastructure, the national government doesn't give money to Ekurhuleni because they say it's under the EFF. So now you want to undermine citizens on the basis that a different party you so dislike out of egos. Not out of anything. You give money to DA government in Cape Town. You give Mtlatuzi in KZN under the IFP. When it comes to EFF, no. Why? The EFF is the only organization that poses a serious threat against the ANC. And that's why they know. When we took over Ekurhuleni with them in government, it didn't take us 3 months to outshine them. And they said, we want out of this coalition. What was the problem? They said, these guys are outshining us. If we continue with this, the movement will be history in Ekurhuleni. They didn't care. One of the ANC councillor, we went to unblock a sewer, a ward councillor, in a ward governed by the ANC councillor. We went to unblock a sewer. She went to fight with an MMC of the EFF. stopping her from unblocking the sewer. Why would you stop someone to unblock the sewer? So they were seeing that as outshining them. So it's more politics of personality and egos than politics of the coalition. And the EFF not being so obsessed with power. When we wanted to bring down the ANC, which we did successfully, in 2016 we gave these local municipalities to DA and said govern them without us being involved. And then subsequently we said now we want to participate. The DA said you can't participate. So we had to look for people who said okay, you can participate, because it's also important for us to accumulate experience. So it's going to be a coalition government where power is going to be shared, especially amongst political parties that share certain principles. There may not be all of them, but there will be some areas of commonality which we agree on, and then we'll go into government.
Shabi, you said recently that the condition that you would put to the ANC would be for the finance minister to be the deputy president of the EFF. Is that correct? Let me not
I don't think your comrades were listening to me. So the story was, do you want to become a deputy president at all costs? Yes. Referring to me.
Yes.
That your name, is it a deal breaker? Mm-hmm. I said, I know power and I know glory, and I don't confuse glory to be power. So I can still run the agenda of the EFF without being in government. But if you don't give me deputy president, don't give me president, you have to